Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
Let's go ahead and talk about Lamar Jackson, though. Of course, we're going to stay on the topic of the AFC North. And Lamar Jackson, a guy that was looking for a huge contract last offseason but was unable to get it, ended up playing out the season on his last year of his deal, ended up getting injured, not coming back for his football team because of that injury. They ended up getting bounced in the first round. And the talks between him and the Ravens, they went pretty long, all the way up until that NFL draft in April, where they were able to strike a deal. Lamar Jackson getting about 180 something guaranteed money, close. I think I'm not too sure if he's the highest paid quarterback right now. I think there's another quarterback that got paid after him. But regardless, the Ravens ended up settling with Lamar Jackson, giving him the money that he deserves. But obviously, when you get paid that much money, the expectations come right with it. And the one thing that the Ravens did, they went ahead and used their first round pick on a wide receiver in Zay Flowers. They went out and signed OBJ to a 1 year, $20 million deal. They ended up firing their offensive coordinator, getting a new guy in there, trying to shake up the offense to give them a different look. So I guess my question to you guys is, is it Super Bowl or bust for the Baltimore Ravens this year?
I think it's like a deep playoff run. I think that's what the idea is, because they've had the regular season success. I mean, well, Lamar Jackson is a starting quarterback. I think the Ravens are 45-16, so we know he absolutely elevates this offense. Him and John Harbaugh, they've done a phenomenal job together. Whenever they're paired together, 45-16 speaks for itself. Every time Lamar steps onto the field, he's guaranteeing the Ravens a chance to a shot to win a game. So I don't think the regular season is as big of an issue. I think for them, it's just making a deep playoff run. And the team decided, hey, like, we have to be able to, allow our guy to have options to throw to. I mean, you have Devin Duvernay, who's really a primary punt returner. He's a guy who returns punts. He shouldn't be out there at wide receiver. He had a little tweak gimmick, but after that, teams caught on to that. Rashad Bateman, he was getting injured too much, but he's another guy that's talented. So they went out and they grabbed OBJ, they grabbed Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman's coming back this year, and they have J.K. Dobbins. Lamar Jackson said it best. He said, running can only take you so far. In this new era of quarterbacks, you see Josh Allen, you see Joe Burrow, you see Patrick Mahomes, you see Trevor Lawrence, you see Justin Herbert. You have to air out the ball. And so Lamar Jackson has never had the opportunity to be a high-volume passer just because of the offense that he's structured. He's in. So now he's going to be playing in a higher tempo offense. He's going to have the ability to throw the ball a lot more. Of course, he's always going to be able to scramble and make plays with his legs, but they're going to be playing at a pace where now Lamar Jackson can actually throw the ball much more. And so wide receivers, whenever they left the Baltimore system, I spoke about, hey, like, this system restricts Lamar Jackson. If anything, it holds back. It's why wide receivers don't come to Baltimore, just because of the system in place. So now they decided to shake up things, especially considering how much they've signed Lamar Jackson to. And so I think for them, it's definitely just a deep playoff run. At least they got to try and make it to the AFC Championship game. They got to win a playoff game for sure. That's a guarantee. They have to win a playoff game. But it's at least attempt to try to get to the AFC Championship game because they have the regular season success before. Now it's about making some sort of run into the postseason. So.
I wouldn't, say it's Super Bowl bust. Lamar finally getting healthy. I feel like he hasn't been healthy the last, 2 years. And given what, they gave him on the field, the receiver options, having Deshaun Jackson, and, making the offense just 100% run, not really evolving in the pass game. And finally, they gave him his targets. They fixed the contract situation. And I just feel like they got a whole new offensive coordinator. I just feel like, it's a new book for Lamar. They're flipping the page. He got his receiver options. Bateman's back healthy. We already spoke about Zay Flowers, OBJ, Mark Andrews. Like I'd be said, deep playoff run. I expect them to win at least 1 or 2 playoff games, get to the AFC Championship, and even compete for that. I feel like they do have the roster to compete and make it to the Super Bowl. But I wouldn't say it's a bust for them. I feel like Lamar still got a couple more years to make the Super Bowl. I feel like they're a very young team, and they're just building towards that way, especially on the defensive side of the ball too. They're pretty young. So for me, offensively, I do expect Lamar to come in. I do have him as one of my MVP candidates this year, so I do expect him to ball out. I do need him to get into that field and be one of those quarterbacks that that dual threat quarterback that can shake it up in the pass game and scare everybody in the run game like he has before. So couple playoff wins. I do see a deep super playoff run for them, and why not compete for the AFC title? You know, make it to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl or not, but they got a roster too, so I expect them to make a deep playoff run.
I think the excuses have run out for Lamar Jackson. I mean, think about it. He was looking for this fully guaranteed contract, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to get that. But he did get something, very high. He got $185 million, 5 years, $260 million, and he was able to stay in a place that stay with the franchise that drafted him. But I think the excuses are up. A lot of Ravens fans are saying, the offensive coordinator was holding him back. It wasn't Lamar Jackson's play. It wasn't his arm strength. It wasn't his arm talent. So all the blame wasn't going on Lamar Jackson. It was going elsewhere. And I feel like now with the Ravens giving him the money that he was looking, not the money he was looking for, but the money he deserves, the 5-year, $260 million contract, $180 million, $85 million guaranteed. I mean, the expectations are through the roof now. I mean, now the Baltimore Ravens pretty much said to Lamar Jackson, we love you and we appreciate you and we love your services, but we understand that with this money, you got to be able to deliver a Super Bowl for us. And so I think I can go out on a limb and say that it is a Super Bowl or bust season for the Baltimore Ravens, just because of what they did this offseason to help Lamar Jackson. Number one, they re-signed him to that contract. Number two, they got him the weapons that he needed. And number three, they ended up removing their offensive coordinator and bringing in someone new. And so the excuses coming out of this season saying, well, it's going to take some time for him to get adjusted to this new offensive playbook. I don't want to hear all of that, because for years,
wait. So is it Super Bowl or a bust for Justin Herbert as well?
No, not necessarily.
Why not?
There's a lot more. I think it's two different situations when you think about it, though, because Justin Herbert is dealing with a whole lot of other issues, because there's a lot of injuries that are happening that were happening last season. And then, of course, but regardless, you can't blow a 27-point lead like we talked about. The defense not playing up to par. The Baltimore Ravens, even though Lamar Jackson missed majority of the season last year, they were still good enough to make the playoffs with Taylor Huntley under center. So it's just like their defense is not an issue. In Los Angeles for the Chargers, their defense is a huge issue, and their head coach is a defensive-minded head coach. So it kind of doesn't make any sense. Like they hired that guy to be
coming into the season for the Chargers, they have an offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. They have the offensive pieces. And they've obviously invested on their defensive end coming from last season and now into this season. Their guys are going to get much more healthier. Is the Super Bowl bust for Justin Herbert? Like, I feel like Super Bowl bust is such a extreme take. It's not like, I feel like for Lamar Jackson, it's just like there's some sort of expectation that exists, yes, but Super Bowl bust seems like such an extreme take. Like, oh, it's like Lamar Jackson has to take us to the Super Bowl or the entire season is a failure. No, if Lamar Jackson is able to take these guys to the AFC Championship game, and let's say, for example, he loses to the Chiefs or he loses to the Bengals or loses to any one of these teams, then I'm like, okay, that's a fair season. He performed up to expectations. But to say Super Bowl bust seems like it's just like an extreme take. Like, does he have to win the Super Bowl now in this year for them to be able to say, okay, Lamar Jackson completed his mission? No, of course. And Lamar Jackson, he said this. He said my 2023 season is going to be a failure if I don't win the Super Bowl. But that's the type of expectation Lamar placed on himself. We're talking about as a whole, the Ravens. I feel like if he's able to take him all the way to the championship game, then Lamar Jackson's performed what we expected. I'm not gonna sit here and I feel like Super Bowl bust is just too black and white to view a season. I feel like that's just like it's one or the other. That's a bit extreme.
I don't think it's a bit extreme. For one, going back to the Los Angeles Chargers, that was Justin Herbert's first playoff appearance. Obviously he went to shit, blowing that 27-point lead, and of course for them, the expectations for them is to win a couple playoff games. That's not the same thing for Lamar Jackson. We've seen Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. I believe in his MVP season, he ended up getting bounced in the first round to the Tennessee Titans. I'm not too sure where that game was at, but regardless, they ended up getting bounced in that game. He ended up coming back, and I believe they played the same team the following year. They beat them, and then after that, I forgot who they ended up losing to, but it's just not the same. For Justin Herbert, it's for him to it's what you said about Lamar Jackson applies more to Justin Herbert than it does to him. Justin Herbert just has to, go on a deep playoff run, make it out of the wild card weekend, get to the second round, have himself a solid performance, and then a lot of the monkey will be off his back. He'll be all right. The following season, though, the expectations for the Los Angeles Chargers will be to get to that Super Bowl level, to get to the AFC Championship game, to compete with teams like the Chiefs and the Bengals, and then, of course, the Ravens. But for Lamar Jackson, like I said, it's completely different because we've seen him in the playoffs before. He didn't have a great first game, but we're not going to count that game where they threw him into the fire against the Chargers his rookie season. But we're going to count that game against those 2 games against the Titans for sure, where he went 1-1 against them. And for this year, he's run out of all the excuses, bro. There's no excuse. There's no card that Lamar Jackson can pull this year because of what they did for him. They ended up getting every weapon possible. You know, they ended up getting OBJ. Whether he got overpaid or not, that's a different discussion we've already talked about. But they got Odell Beckham Jr. And the last time we saw him, he was solid. Rashad Bateman will be coming back this year. That's a weapon that Lamar is already familiar with, so there should be no issue there. Mark Andrews, his old reliable weapon and as a tight end, he's solid. He's still there. And then, of course, Zay Flowers, they're a rookie. So I'm not going to go ahead and put crazy expectations on Zay Flowers, but I think Zay Flowers is going to be pretty solid in this offense. And then the offensive coordinator firing, they ended up moving off into a different direction and bringing in a new guy, a new face, a new playbook. So for Lamar Jackson, the time to win a Super Bowl is now because you wanted all this money, and of course, rightfully so, he deserved it. But at the same time, you got to deliver a Super Bowl for the Ravens because if these guys just end up going back to the playoffs, because like you said, the regular season success is going to be there always because it doesn't matter who's under center. Their defense is so great. They're going to be good enough to compete and stay in games. If they're just able to squeak out a couple wins here and there and finish with 10, 11 wins, don't make the playoffs. But with Lamar Jackson, when he's under center, it's a different level of expectation. You got to be able to compete. You got to be able to compete with the Chiefs. You got to be able to go toe to toe with the Bengals, a team that's your rival in your division. So for me, I think it's definitely Super Bowl or bust. And I don't think it's crazy to say because Lamar Jackson has to go out there and show why he's worth all this money and why he's a top quarterback in this league. Because for years you were saying that he didn't have any weapons, and for years you were saying that wide receivers don't want to go to Baltimore because of the offensive coordinator. Well, all those issues seem to be gone now.
Yeah, but it's the first year of Lamar Jackson in this offense, though. You're putting it into like a crazy box. Like it's either Super Bowl or bust for Lamar Jackson. No, it's literally just you have to have you have to upgrade your level of success. Last season they were into the playoffs without Lamar Jackson. They lost that game to the Bengals. Unfortunate situation. The year before that, Lamar Jackson gets injured. Same situation happens. For these guys, it's just a level of success that continues to improve. And so coming into this next season, they're looking at how can we improve on this last season? How can we improve on Lamar Jackson and his playoff run? He's only had a playoff win, so I think only one playoff win so far. And so they're looking at it, okay, how can we improve our track record in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson? Okay, if we make a deep playoff run, that's a successful first year season under this new offensive coordinator, with these new wide receivers. It's not a Super Bowl or bust and that's it for these guys. If we were looking at things like that, there'd be a lot of quarterbacks that'd be Super Bowl or bust in the entire NFL. But that's not how it works. It's just like, how can we improve on our success going into the next season? I think it's a bit of an extreme take to just say, oh, okay, if the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl, they had a complete failure of a season. Absolutely not. If they make the AFC Championship and they're competing with a team like the Chiefs or the Bengals, that's a successful season for the Ravens, 100%. Compared to what they were a couple of years ago, I'd say they had a very, very strong season. So, of course, nobody likes to lose. And if somebody fails into the AFC Championship game, then it's why how it works is, for example, with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, when he made the AFC Championship game, everybody was looking at it, okay, Josh Allen has to just make it back there. The guy performed. Everybody was like, Josh Allen's this unbelievable quarterback. And so what was the reason why Josh Allen, the expectations for him went higher is because he made it to the AFC Championship game. And so when he didn't make it back there, when he didn't even get out the divisional game, against the Bengals, people were like, oh, okay, Josh Allen, he's failing his team. But it's not just like a Super Bowl or bust type of thing. You have to have some level of success in the playoffs. And so they're looking at it like the Ravens at least have to make the AFC Championship game, and that's a successful season for them.
What's stopping them from competing now, though? What's stopping them from making
Nothing. They can compete with these teams 100%.
If they can compete, then if you're good enough to compete with the top dogs, then why would it not be a Super Bowl or bust? Because if you told me the Bengals this season it's a Super Bowl or bust for them, I would honestly agree with you on that because obviously
why would it be Super Bowl or bust for the Bengals? Why is it Super Bowl or bust?
Because you got to think about it though. Their time is kind of running out though. I mean, you can't just say okay, they made it to the AFC.
So why is Lamar Jackson's time running out? Why is there a clock on him?
Because there's no more excuses. We've seen it in the playoffs.
There's not a clock on him, though. There's not a clock on him. Why are we acting like this team is if anything, why aren't you saying that about Jalen Hurts? When I said that about Jalen Hurts, why isn't this next season Super Bowl or bust for Jalen Hurts? He has a roster. They have a complete team. You're not putting Super Bowl or bust on him either. Why is that? Why is it only Lamar Jackson? Why is that not for Josh Allen? Why is that not for Trevor Lawrence? Why is Trevor Lawrence not having a Super Bowl bust season? He has a complete offense. He has Travis Etienne, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. He has a complete offense. His defense is ever improving. Why is it Super Bowl bust for him? Like, I feel like Super Bowl bust for Lamar Jackson only. You should be applying that to Jalen Hurts with his roster. You should be applying that to Trevor Lawrence. You should be applying that to Deshaun Watson as well, too. I don't get it. Is it just Lamar Jackson?
That's
no,
a reach.
I'm not. No,
it's not Deshaun Watson.
If Deshaun Watson's this so-called top 5 quarterback that you've been raving about, he should be a Super Bowl bust because he has the offense for it. He has the pieces for it. He needs to put it together. He has the weapons. He has Mark Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and he has Elijah Moore, and he has one of the best running backs in the entire NFL, and one of the best offensive lines, and he has arguably one of the best defensive players in the entire league. And their defense is improving next season with Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward and Zadarius Smith that they picked up, and Dalvin Tomlinson. They're gonna have a better defense. And so why isn't it Super Bowl or bust for Deshaun Watson? It should apply across the board, especially for a guy like Jalen Hurts. I don't know why you're not saying Super Bowl bust for him either.
There's not a lot of pressure when it comes to pressure or Super Bowl bust mentality for the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at their roster construction. Look at the conference that they play in. They're going to get back. They're going to get back. They have no excuses. That team is bound to get back to the AFC. NFC Championship game.
Is it Super Bowl bust for the Eagles?
Nah, because their Super Bowl window is wide open, so they'll be able to get back there.
That's crazy.
They'll be able to get back there.
Why is Lamar Jackson's window not open then?
That one's a tricky one, I'll be honest. But the thing is, my only issue with Lamar Jackson is because the conversations throughout the course of his career so far has always been about he doesn't necessarily have the weapons. Top wide receivers don't go to Baltimore because of their offensive coordinator. And so Lamar Jackson's arm talent can't really be put on display because of the weapons that he has. But now he has the weapons, and it's not like he's working with some sort of trash weapons. I mean, OBJ still there. How good will OBJ be coming off a torn ACL injury? We just don't know, but he'll still be pretty solid. Mark Andrews is there, Rashad Bateman, and then they ended up using their first-round pick on a wide receiver. So I just feel like the excuses that you guys were using for all these years for Lamar Jackson is gone now. So if he doesn't cap off this year with a Super Bowl, it's a bust in miles. The season is a failure. Like you can go ahead and say, well, yeah, they can go ahead and build off that going into next year. And maybe I'm saying this a year too early. But regardless, if these guys are good enough to compete with the top dogs in the AFC, which is going to be a bloodbath with all those top teams, then these guys should be good enough to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. Because if they're able to beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl or the Bengals, then they're good enough to win it. And that's my only argument, because I just feel like the excuses for Lamar Jackson has run out, because now we're going to see everything on display for him. His arm talent, everything, the decision-making, him being able to elevate this offense, him being able to get back to his MVP form, and then we'll be able to have a discussion about it. But just to go ahead and say that, Lamar Jackson is
my thing is that you have to apply that. My thing is that you have to apply that standard across the board. Then you cannot just apply to Lamar Jackson and not apply to everybody. I hope you're applying that to Josh Allen as well. I hope you're applying
I think those guys are number one on my list when it comes to pressure.
I hope you're applying that. I hope you're applying that to Jalen Hurts, because again, he has a roster for it. If the argument is you have the roster and you have the team for it, it's Super Bowl bust for those guys. It's Super Bowl bust for Trevor Lawrence, because what excuses exist for him? He has a complete offense for it. He has every single person in his entire offense for it. And Deshaun Watson, again, that's another guy. I think if you're gonna have that Super Bowl bust mentality, it should apply across the entire board to every single person. That's just my thing. If you say Lamar Jackson Super Bowl bust, then fair enough. Then it should be for every single person who has the capability and their roster allows them to have that capability of making it to the Super Bowl. They should be a Super Bowl bust. That's how I view it.
Okay, I mean, then I guess are we gonna sit here and then go as far as to say that it's gonna be Super Bowl or bust for the New York Jets? I mean, they got Aaron Rodgers. They got the roster there, so.
Yeah, why not?
Are we throwing them into the mix too?
Why not? If that's a standard that we're applying across the board, that a season for certain teams has to be Super Bowl or bust, then that's even though with the expectations for the Jets, the thing is, I look at it as what the team views their expectation as. When I look at the Ravens, they're thinking to themselves, okay, if we make it to the AFC Championship and we have an improved offense and Lamar Jackson has a good season, he stays healthy, and our pass catchers play solid, and we make it all the way to make a deep playoff run, that's a successful season. For the Jets coming off what they were last season, if they have a solid postseason run, if they win a game or two, then that's better than what they had before. That's an upgrade on them. Eventually, the next season, when they improve the offensive line, that's going to place more expectations on them. I view expectations as the team continually improves. The reason why people are mad at Josh Allen is because it feels like he took a step back from what he was. He made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. He was competing with Mahomes the following year. He tried his absolute best, and then just for that to happen, I feel like that's where, if you're not able to have some sort of sustained success, you're not able to improve on yourself, then that's where it's like Super Bowl bust type of team. So I don't view the Eagles as like a Super Bowl bust. I think there's pressure on them to win it because of their roster, but it's not Super Bowl bust. If they make it to the NFC Championship game, and they lose, I'm going to still be like, okay, it's a successful season for the Eagles, even though they had the roster to win it. That's how I view things.
How much pressure is on Lamar Jackson this year?
Like pressure to win the Super Bowl or like pressure to perform?
Well, for you, I mean, you're saying that he just needs to have a successful postseason run to get to the AFC Championship game, so they could have something to build off of going into next season. So,
yes.
How much pressure
I think
on Lamar Jackson?
I think there's a heavy dose of pressure on Lamar Jackson coming into the season because, again, as you mentioned, there's no really excuses for Lamar Jackson. He has a new offensive coordinator. He has new pass catchers. His defense is solid, and he has a good running back in J.K. Dobbins and his offensive line. Obviously, we know how solid those guys are, and so I don't think for Lamar Jackson there's a little amount of pressure. There's a very, very solid, heavy amount of pressure on Lamar Jackson to perform because, again, everybody was talking about the offensive structure, rightfully so, and the wide receivers, and so there's a good argument there about Lamar Jackson having a heavy amount of pressure against him. So,
okay, hypothetically speaking, these guys get to the AFC Championship game, they end up losing to the Chiefs or the Bengals, whoever it is. Going into next season, would you then say that it's Super Bowl or bust? This would be the last thing.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. That's fair. I guess
it's
agree to disagree.
Because they'd have to improve on what they had. And so, you look at the Bengals, they made the Super Bowl, and in the following year they could have made it again, but they lost to the Chiefs. And so for them, it's just getting back to that same position. Sometimes it's just about having sustained success. Like if you look at the Chiefs, would you say the Chiefs are a Super Bowl or bust type of team coming to the season? Maybe for themselves, yes.
I mean, every franchise is going to have that mentality.
For them, yeah. For them, of course, they believe they're a Super Bowl bust team. But when I look at it, if the Chiefs make it to the NFC Championship game and they lose, or the AFC Championship game and they lose, I'm not going to be like, okay, it's a bust season. It's, if anything, speaks volumes to their sustained success. And so I think it depends on how long you've been at least in the playoffs. And so the Bengals, if they make it again to the AFC Championship game and they lose, I don't know how I'd feel about that. But I'd be like, okay, they have some level of sustained success. They just can't get over the hump. And so for Lamar Jackson, he has to make some sort of postseason run.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lake, now that's overkill.